The New York Giants blow another one, a 26-18 decision to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. As always, takeaways, disappointments, few kudos, whatever we can find coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, a credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL, written in all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. The Giants losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football, 26-18. And, you know, the crime of this one was that it was a winnable game for the Giants. I mean, you look at the first half when the two teams battled to a 9-9 tie. They were basically trading off field goals. And I just look at how this game unfolded, and it's so frustrating. And by that, I mean, I want to start off by talking about the sloppiness by the New York Giants, all right? And there was a lot of sloppiness in this game. And we've got to start with the penalties. Now, on New York Giants on SI, I do a weekly review of the officiating crew because some crews, admittedly, are more flag happy than others. So I kind of do a little scouting report before every game. This crew coming in was not quite as flag happy as some of the other crews, but in this game, they were flag happy. The Giants had 11 penalties in this game, which I believe matched their week one total against the Minnesota Vikings, which is where you would expect such sloppiness, by the way. You know, coming out of training camp, the starters hadn't played in almost a month. You would expect it in week one, not in week 8. Now, of the 11 penalties, 9 were on the offense. And of those 9 penalties, 6 were pre-snap. That's right. You heard correctly. Pre-snap penalties, 6 of them. The 11 penalties, by the way, second most by any team, actually tied for second most by any team this past week, tied with Seattle, who had 11 as well. But what bothered me was, again, 6 pre-snap penalties in week 8. How does that happen? It was almost as though the Giants just didn't practice or something this week. All right? I mean, you had illegal shifts. You had false starts. I mean, it was crazy. That's on coaching, folks. Plain and simple. You know, it wasn't as though, you know, the crowd was like so loud to create all this stuff. This is fundamental football. And this team just was terrible at it, especially on offense. So that was a big, big issue for me with this loss, to have all those pre-snap penalties, 6 of them, 6 out of the 9 that the offense recorded. All right, let's talk about some other stuff. The run defense, all right? This run defense is putrid. And if anything, every week we see this, it underscores the priority to get another defensive lineman in here. Dexter Lawrence can't do it all by himself because runners are getting to the second level, the third level, and it's just not a good setup right now. The Steelers rushed for 167 yards, 31 carries. Najee Harris had 114 yards on 19 carries. That's 6.0 yards per carry. All right. When you're averaging that kind of carry or average per rush, guess what? You make it easier on your offense, which is what happened. All right. Now, other mistakes while we're staying with the topic of offense, going back to the Giants offense. I am so tired of saying this. I'm sure you guys are tired of me saying it as well. But Daniel Jones's play drives me crazy. It really does. Now, his numbers were 24 of 38, 264 yards, decent 72.7 quarterback rating. You would think that would be enough to win the game, right? Except for this. And, if you saw the broadcast last night, Troy Aikman said one of the things that I've been saying about Daniel Jones for like the longest time now. He doesn't throw with any anticipation. He basically waits until he can trust what he's seeing. There was a play that Aikman highlighted in which Darius Slayton was running down along the sideline. Excuse me. And Daniel Jones, instead of throwing the ball and waiting for the receiver to get to the spot, instead of throwing it to a spot, he waited till basically Slayton was at the spot, threw the ball. Slayton had to slow down. Boom, in comes the defender. No chance for Yak. If this offense wants to be one that racks up the yak, they need a quarterback who can throw with anticipation. Daniel Jones ain't it. Later in the game, Daniel Jones responsible for the strip sack fumble against him. Why? Because he didn't call the correct protection. That was a big one, folks. That was a big, big mistake to make. All right. Now, this is where they missed Andrew Thomas, because you assume that, they have Andrew Thomas in the lineup. You don't need to give help to him against Highsmith. You send all your help over to the right side, to Jermaine Illuminor's side, to help with TJ Watt. But the Giants, of course, don't have Andrew Thomas. So all they had to do was call for a chip, call for a shift, and then chip the guy. Didn't happen. Illuminor was expecting it. It didn't happen. Forced a sack, forced fumble recovery. That was one of the first, even though it came late in the game, that was a huge play. The other thing that Daniel Jones did is on his interception, his one interception in the game, when he had Theo Johnson wide open in the middle of the field. What happened? Daniel Jones felt the rush. His feet got happy. He never set them. He panicked, threw the ball where he shouldn't have thrown the ball. Interception, game over. This team, I'm sorry, they're just not going to win with this guy. And look, he's a nice guy. I have nothing personal against him. But how much more do we need to see to know that this isn't working out? But yet he gives the Giants the best chance to win, or so Brian Daboll would have us believe. What does that tell you about the state of the quarterback room, if that's what the coach truly believes? Terrible, guys. Just absolutely terrible. It's so disheartening, because this game was one the Giants could have won, even with the penalties, even with the fact that they were giving up the rushing yardage that I mentioned. But they didn't. One more mistake I want to talk about: special teams. The 73-yard touchdown return by Austin, I think it was. Calvin Austin. Started with Matt Hawk out-kicking the coverage. Continued with 4 missed tackles. Just once, can special teams not create an adventure for this team? Just once, could special teams flip the field in favor of the Giants? Is that asking too much? Apparently it is. Just totally, totally frustrating. And then, I mentioned, the run defense, which was just absolute garbage this week. Coaching decisions, the only critique I really have is what was that 2-point play that they tried? That was a really funky formation. And, again, the guys weren't set. Was that on the quarterback? Was that on, what was that on? So all these little mistakes kept adding up. And when you add them up, you get a loss. And that's exactly what the Giants got. Unfortunate, but they're 2-6 for what? The 7th time in the last 8 seasons. Bring on the draft. We'll be talking about it soon enough, ladies and gentlemen. Soon enough. Coming up next, more takeaways on the 26-18 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Please stay with us. Hey, Giant fans, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up this week on the Locked On Giants podcast, tomorrow I'm going to have Ted Wynn of The Athletic on. That show is definitely happening. It's already been recorded, so that will happen. Thursdays, crossover Thursday, David Harrison of Locked On Commanders will join me, and we will get you ready for the Giants home game against the Washington Commanders, where the Giants will hopefully get their first win at home of the season. Has home's unsweet home for the Giants, it's been. All right, let's continue with the takeaways on this team's loss. And some other things I want to point to. Just, I don't understand, quite honestly, why this is still an issue. But 3rd down, all right, the Giants, 5 of 15, 33%. You just, if you're going to have that many 3rd downs, now think about this for a second here. The Giants had, let me see, total offensive plays, 67, all right? 15 of those were 3rd down plays, and you're only converting 5. You ain't going to win very many games if you're not converting those 3rd downs. Ideally, you want to stay out of 3rd down if you can, but you're not going to win very many games if, you're just not converting them. But for me, the biggest stat was in the red zone. Now, to be fair, both teams were terrible in the red zone. The Steelers were 0 for 4, but that's for Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers to talk about. I want to talk about the Giants. 0 for 3 in the red zone. It's like they get to the red zone, and I've been calling it the dead zone all year long because that's what it is. They get inside the red zone, and I don't know if it's the play calling, the execution, a combination of the two. Whatever it is, the Giants just can't score inside the opponent's 20-yard line. And it's so, so frustrating, folks. Okay, how bad has it been for the Giants in the red zone? They are ranked dead last in the NFL. Dead last. With a 36.36% conversion percentage. This is for touchdowns, not field goals. You want to score touchdowns in the red zones. Giants are ranked dead last, 36.36%. In their last 3 games, dead last, and it ain't even close. The percentage, 16.67%. Again, you are not going to win games if you can't get into the end zone. You've got less than 20 yards in most cases to get into the end zone. So what are you doing? Are you calling, slow developing plays down there, which has been sometimes the problem? Are you just not executing? Are you overthinking the situation? Maybe it's a combination of all the above. But whatever the case, the Giants, they can get down to the red zone, but they can't punch it in. And that is a huge problem for this team. And until they fix it, they're just not going to go anywhere. They're not. All right. Now, you look at the scoring by the Giants. All right. The Giants now have not scored over 20 points in their last 3 games, all losses. Matter of fact, of all their losses this year, their 6 losses, they have failed to score more than 18 points. All right. Their 2 wins this year, they beat Cleveland 21-15, so they scored over 20 points. And of course, the Seattle win back in week 5 when it was 29-20. You got to keep up with with the rest of the league here. You just, if you don't, you're just not going to win games. And this team right now, just absolutely terrible, especially on offense. I mean, the Giants, let's see, they are ranked right now 31st in scoring, averaging 14.6 points per game. In their last 3, 9.3 points per game. All right, so the 14.6 is 31st in the league. The 9.3 in their last 3, dead last, and it ain't even close. It ain't even close, folks. It's just, I don't know what to tell you anymore with this team. It's a combination of things. And, it's not like they don't have playmakers. Tyrone Tracy had a great game until, unfortunately he had the concussion. But the kid definitely looks like an RB1 now, and it looks like he's past, Devin Singletary on the depth chart. Malik Neighbors, when he wasn't dropping passes, he had 2 of the 4 drop passes in this game. He's a playmaker. Theo Johnson looks like he's a playmaker. Darius Slayton continues to be a stud out there. So they got playmakers. The offensive line, like I said before, they are missing Andrew Thomas, but, they haven't been as bad as they were last year. So I just don't know. Something's got to give here. I don't want to keep blaming the quarterback because he's part of the problem, but not the sole problem. But something's got to change. I'm just not sure what that something is, or if they can, if they can get a change in here that will salvage what's left of the season, which, with another loss next week to Washington, you pretty much can say it's over, although it's probably over now. But if they lose at home to Washington, then I don't even think I'm going to pick them to win against Carolina. And that's a game they should win. But we'll see, of course. All right, folks, coming up next, Deonte Banks was finally benched. I want to talk a little bit about that and some of what he had to say and what really bothers me about this whole situation. So please stick around. I'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including literature, mathematics, fine arts, history, economics, and so much more. There's no better way to expand your knowledge and challenge your mind than to open it to learning something new from Hillsdale College's vast catalog of online courses. Enroll today for free at hillsdale.edu/lockedon. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. Again, that URL is hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hey, Giant fans, PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. It's easy to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which players aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money. And be sure to check out PrizePicks weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday, when every Tuesday PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Price Picks, run your game. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And before I put a bow on this forgettable, sloppy, disappointing, whatever adjective you want to use to describe the Giants' latest loss, I want to talk about the Deonte Banks situation. Head coach Brian Daboll finally decided to bench Deonte Banks in this game. Now, just leading up to it, Banks had gotten called out by his teammates after last week's inconsistent effort against the Philadelphia Eagles. He was called out by the team leaders, Dexter Lawrence amongst them. Banks stood in front of the media and said it won't happen again. Well, guess what? It happened again. There were a couple plays where you can maybe question the effort, one of which was actually on a play where there was a touchdown pass thrown to George Pickens, wide receiver for the Steelers, and Pickens didn't get his both feet in bounds, and Banks kind of pushed him out of the way. But the problem with that play was Banks didn't make a play for the ball. He just kind of was passive with it. He didn't go after the ball. Then you had, Najee Harris, the running back, hurdling over Banks, who basically curled up into a fetal position and tried to drive him with the shoulder instead of putting out his arms to try and grab him and stop him in mid-flight. So those things all kind of led to Daboll saying, okay, I've had enough. He put him on the bench, despite the fact that they didn't have Trey Hawkins or Cordell Flott or Dory Jackson. And Daboll played Greg Stroman, who they had elevated from the practice squad for the rest of the game. After the game, Banks basically said, he was asked about being benched, and he kind of shrugged it off. He was very, nonchalant about it. He's like, I just play football. It's, those are their decisions. Where's the remorse? Where's the, yes, I understand now. Yes, I'm embarrassed that I had playtime taken away from me on national television. Yes, I'm embarrassed that I'm going to be in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. But no, I just play football. It's their decision. That bothers me, folks. That really, really bothers me. Because, if you're embarrassed like that, look, Daniel Jones, let's go back to him for a second. This is a good thing, I promise. Daniel Jones got up in front of the media and he said, I screwed up by not calling the chip, the protection call on that strip sack fumble that he had. He owned up to it. I can respect that. I can definitely respect that. Okay? Nobody's perfect. And for him to get up there and face the question and not say, well, I just have to play better or blow off the question, you respect that. For Deonte Banks to just sit there and say, my effort wasn't good enough. They told me I was missing tackles. He, in my eyes, pushed the blame away from him. Didn't own up to it. And I think Brian Burns said it best. He said, this team needs to grow up. It needs to grow up. You can't have this immature, I just play football, man. Okay? I just write and podcast, but if I say something that's incorrect, or if I write something that's incorrect, you know what? I deserve to get called out by my readers and my listeners because I was sloppy and careless. I deserve to get called out by my bosses. But I don't know, guys. Maybe it's because I'm a little older, or a lot older, I should say, than Deonte Banks. Maybe because, I've learned those lessons and he hasn't. But that attitude just really, really rubbed me the wrong way. Now, Daboll said that, he'll eventually go back in the starting lineup, but he has to earn the trust of the coaching staff again. Now, my prediction on that, I think he will be back in the starting lineup for the Washington game. I really do. That whole incident was just another ugly strike on a night full of ugliness and sloppiness. So, where did the Giants go from here? Well, as Stable says, back to the drawing board. Coach better, play better, execute better, all the above. I'm tired of hearing it. Do it at this point. You know, like Tom Coughlin always used to say, talk is cheap. Do it. We know you're not playing well. We know you're not coaching well. We know you're not executing well. Stop saying we've got to do it better. We see that. Okay? People are not blind. They're not stupid. They see that. Just do it. We'll see if they do. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in and putting up with another rant the day after another terrible loss. Ted Wynn of The Athletic will join me on tomorrow's show. I hope you will check that out. Until then, have a great day, everybody.